1, 2, We can keep going if you want.
There we are. There's always something at the beginning. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Charlie. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. We've got it's been a while since we've done these, and today is going to be a special one.
Yeah, this is our 6th virtual showroom live stream. So for those of you who have never seen one of these before, what we try to do is bring you into the studio, into the control room, talk about mic choice, talk about mic placement. We did one 3-part series with a rock band. We did one with a female vocalist and piano. Did one with just drums with Glenn Sobel. That was a treat. And now we've got a jazz quartet. So this is very new. This is live in the studio. No multi-tracking, no overdubbing, just a bunch of mics all on at once. So we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that presents as well.
Yeah, and it sounds, as you guys heard, it sounds really, really good. So Matt, how did, I'm going to let you and Charles take over right here and tell the story of how you guys met, which led to you all being here today.
Yeah, right on. So Charles actually emailed me. We were going back and forth asking questions. Charles had questions about microphones. Actually, I think, if I remember right, he had an interest in modifying some inexpensive microphones. And so we were going back and forth about that. And then he related that he had been looking for a new kick drum mic and ended up with a Mini K47 and loved it. And that, one thing leads to another. And I found out that he was in Los Angeles. And Charles, if I remember right, you actually offered, you said, I saw your Glenn Sobel stream, and if you want to do something like that, I could put a band together.
Yeah, basically, I mean, exactly like you said, the original point of contact was, when during the pandemic, I was, of course, starting to, do some home recording, remote recording for other people. And I had a budget, so I had to buy some inexpensive mics. And one of the very first things I wanted to do after the first paid job was to upgrade, and that put us in touch. And then when I got ended up upgrading and eventually came across the K47, the Mini K47, it was just remarkable what that microphone did. And I just wanted to reach out because originally when we spoke, it was about doing those upgrades, and I really was just like, look, I'm not going to end up doing the upgrades, but I did want to let you know that I ended up with a K47 and I love it. And having seen what you and Charlie had been doing, it was just really interesting, and it was informative. I mean, for me, it was after the fact. I had already bought the K47 and then decided to do a bunch of research on it, and that's when I kind of came across your guys' stuff, and it was so informative that I thought, well, I mean, I know Glenn and I know the guys in the Rump Rollers so I had seen some of the other stuff he did, and I just thought, man, what a great way, because these mics are great for this kind of setup, which is obviously a very different kind of thing than I think most studios of today are used to doing. So I thought it would be a great way to showcase what the mics can do, because they really are special.
Yeah, well, I'm psyched about it. So those of you on the stream have only heard about a minute's worth, but we got a little I got to hear the sound check earlier. So you guys are in for a treat. Charles, could you introduce the band for us?
Absolutely, absolutely. So on tenor saxophone right there is Doug Webb, great tenor saxophone player. I'm used to hearing applause at this moment, so you'll have to forgive me. I hope you're applauding at home. On the piano, Peter Smith joins us today, and Trevor Ware is playing bass. Those guys also get applause, so I don't want to leave it out that they are not getting applause.
I need to get my virtual applause,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
but like arena size. You know, there's 4 of us in the studio, but why does it sound like Wembley Stadium?
Exactly. Yeah, perfect.
They introduced a bass player. I didn't hear any clapping. Sorry. Being a drummer, I've been used to the butt of all the jokes for ages, you know. Oh, that audio coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. I want to do just a quick run through of what we have
Absolutely.
on everything.
Yep.
And let's just start with the most important instrument, saxophone.
Fuck. Whoops.
Okay, wait, you're the boss. We'll go with drums. But I had to get you.
No. Let's start there.
We'll end with drums today.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the sax actually we're using the Mini K87. It's sound check. We tried the 47 and the 87 just to see which one was working better with his saxophone and sounded kind of better in the room. And the 87 just had a little bit nicer body for that particular horn. But I think, Matt, you guys sell, and actually you have a matched or a mixed pair of them, right? Because every horn's a little bit different. I mean, you could say that about any instrument, really, but especially horns. You know, it's drastically different from a sax to a trumpet to a tuba, you know, of what you're going to be getting frequency-wise. So you might try various mics, right?
That's the reality of it. You know, the comparison that I use a lot, because I hear it a lot, is guitar players. You know, very few guitar players have just one guitar, and if they buy a second or third, it's not because they sound exactly the same. It's because they sound different, and they feel different, and they inspire different things. And so what we found, and what guitar players have given us good feedback about, is that different guitars that sound different favor different microphones that also sound different. And so we make the Mini K47 and it sounds a certain way, and we make another small mic called the Mini K87 and it sounds different than the 47. It's got a different frequency response, and it brings out different aspects of the instrument. And so just as Charlie was saying, on this particular horn, the Mini K87 had the right combination of sounds. You might find on a different horn that the 47 would be favored. It just depends on what you like to hear, and it depends on the instrument too.
Exactly. And it wasn't that the 47 sounded bad. It's just when we put this one on, it sounded just like when I'm standing next to him in the room. It's like, oh, there's that body of the instrument. So, and it worked really nice. You want to give us a little taste there? There we go. Sorry, I had to turn off I got the talkback mic cranked in there. But that's just, I'm not running any reverb or anything. When you hear them play, it's gonna sound like there is, and that's because of the wonderful thing called bleed. And we'll get to that in a second. But that's just the sax. Let's move on to the other most
Charlie,
important. Yeah.
One question. I mean, you use the word body. Is there some other aspect of the sound that you were going for? Like for me, I wouldn't want to hear a lot of valve noise, just as an example, but are there other things that you're going for?
No, it was the more of a round kind of sound. You know, there isn't a whole section in there, so there's one horn, so I wanted it to sound kind of full. It didn't need to cut through a big band or anything. Mm-hmm. So both Ernesto and I, when we were just listening to him, it's like, okay, the 47, if we were in a big band, I'd probably put that thing up because that would cut right through everything. But since it's a lone sax in the room, it was, we were kind of missing a little bit of the body, and the 87 instantly kind of gave that just kind of rounded off a little bit.
You know, I love that though, that idea that even on the same horn, in a different context, you might want a different microphone again to serve a different purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I might want to use the 47 if I was playing like electric music with electric guitar, the way it sounded at least in the headphones. If I was playing more like rock or pop, that would be better. Whereas I thought the 87 is just mellower for jazz. At least what I was hearing.
That's a perfect word for it, mellower.
Yeah,
yes.
mellower.
And I think that's part of that roundness, that body it was getting just kind of made it sit a little bit. Perfect. See, it's one thing I've also realized over the years, it's always best to ask the player too, because they know their instruments. All right, let's move over to the other most important instrument. Of course, I'm going to say that about all of them, bass. Give me a little bass there, buddy.
So you want arco, pizzicato, either?
All the above. Nice. So I muted everything, so that was just the bass mic. Again, I went with the Mini K87. And if you've seen any of the other videos, like this, when we did the string quartet last year, that was on the cello. That again, it's that bottom end. It is mellow is a good word, but just natural, I think, is a good word for that mic too. And when you have a bass like that and a player that can play it like that, the last thing I want to do is try to affect that sound. I want to try to capture him as real as possible and as true as possible. And to me, the Mini K does a really nice, the 87 does a really nice job at that.
Yeah, I've mixed, like I do some recording, like I do some mixing too. And acoustic bass is something that's always really challenging, and oftentimes, especially in the last, I would say 10 years, a lot of engineers have gotten used to putting a couple of mics on the bass. You know, they'll put a pencil condenser kind of on the, up on the neck, and maybe something, a bigger body, large diaphragm, something, on the near the F hole. And I'll tell you, I have not heard a single mic capture that bass sound as true as you're talking about in a really long time. That was like, I don't want to say I'm surprised, but I was sitting here just going like, holy mackerel, I turned to Peter, I was like, God, that sounds amazing. Like, it really is. Like, usually today you find two mics to get that sound.
Right.
And that is just a one shot.
That was the
deal.
same reaction I had the first time I did that with that mic, because I used to do the same thing. I had a clip on I do on the bridge, and you're moving another one around. It's like, man, it's this big instrument. I can't get it all.
Yeah.
And then it was out of necessity. One day we just threw that up on a cello and went,
yeah, it works.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it works. Works great.
Can I just say one thing that I love about it too? Is just the fullness of the sound. Like, this is a bass instrument, and this is great at capturing the bass frequencies, but it's capturing all the frequencies too. The reason the bass sounds clear is because it's capturing those upper frequencies as well. So it's capturing everything, and so we've got a great bass representation, but we've got the full sound of the instrument too.
Yep, very true.
I love it.
And we have that. I mean, again, I asked Trevor where the spot was to put that microphone, and the only thing we did was move it a little bit closer when everybody was playing, because we're trying to mitigate some bleed. But he knows the instrument, and that spot worked really good. Okay, moving on to the other most important instrument. I'm just going with it at this point, piano. Let's hear a little bit of piano.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so we changed. If anybody saw the Gabby Gordon live stream that we did in January with the vocals and piano, we used the Colaris then. Today we decided to go with the Delphos II, which for me, that's the workhorse mic out of everything. If that's all the only mic I ever had to have, I could record anything I ever want with that mic. It's natural, but it's got a really nice bottom, and for the piano, it actually is a pretty good articulation. Can you throw that? Oh yeah, you got the photo up, so you can see where we have the mics on the back. Kind of space. We got one. That's the column of that piano that tends to work the best that we found out of everything. So, excellent. Okay, now we're going to move on to arguably the most important.
I mean,
But certainly the last.
Certainly the last.
If not the most important, the last.
Okay, go for it.
All right.
Awesome. Sounds great. Mini K47 KD on the kick. I think we're about 6 to 8 inches in front. Pair of Mini K47s, overheads, and an ORTF. And then we do have an SDC 84 high SPL edition pencil mic on the snare, just as a little bit of extra articulation. But pretty much it's all the overheads is the sound of the kit. I mean, I'm literally, if I look here, I'm just barely blending the snare mic in, barely at all. One thing when you have a kit tuned like this, I'm skipping over the most important part, which is the player, but I'll save that for last. When you have kits that are tuned higher, it's a lot easier to get the articulation and the body out of the mics from overheads. You don't tend to have too much close miking, so you can really look at the kit as a whole, as one instrument, kind of like we are the piano. Now, when you have a player that can actually control the kit, then it's magic, because if I turn the snare mic off, you're still going to hear pretty much everything that's there. And it translates. If we were tuning low and tubby like some, big fat sounds, we'd be close micing because the overheads would be here and, basically wood hitting plastic. But this translates nice. Okay, so here's the big kicker with all this. This is live. We heard one instrument at a time, and I muted everything that wasn't the person playing. So in this case, I want to go back to sax for just 1 second. I'm going to leave all the mics wide open except the talkback. I'm going to remember that one's off right now. Can you give me just a little bit of saxophone? That's with the sax muted. Yeah, keep going a little. Cool, thank you, sir. The reason I went with the sax first is because it's throwing more mid-range out into the room to where it's in everything. And it actually kind of acts like a reverb, and we've got good spacing of everybody in there, so we don't really have any phase issues. But just the fact that it's in the overhead mics, it's in the piano mics, because it's probably about 8 feet, well, maybe 7, 8 feet from sax to piano microphones, and the same thing to the bass. Those are all room mics for the sax. Now the same thing goes for the drums. Do a little drums. I'm going to keep everything wide open. Drums only. Perfect. I want that ride cymbal. Got to figure out a way to hide that before he gets it out of the room. So the same thing, it's all the other mics in the room are picking up some of that, so it acts as all the other mics in there are ambient mics for the drums. It'll be the same way for the piano. It's going to be a lesser extent with the bass. Give me a little bass actually for a second. So there's bass only. Turn the overheads on. Mics. Thank you. And now, so you hear the same thing with the bass. We basically have a spot mic and then a bunch of room mics for every single instrument in there. And it just works. But this is, I'd like to say it's me doing it. I mean, yeah, I place the mics, but this is all about the players playing together and being able to balance themselves. We've got no EQ, I've got no compression, everything is just off, and it's them playing into the microphones. So that's it.
That's great. Charlie, it sounds really good. I do have a question, 2 questions for you. One
Shoot.
is, normally you do a different overhead setup, and now you've got an ORTF. What made you go that way? Was it just the nature of this particular session?
That's a good question, actually, because I was going to go with my normal one. But sometimes if I'm hanging, his set was more condensed, you know, with the cymbals there. So ORTF, I'm not a huge XY fan, but I do like ORTF because it gives you an actual stereo image. That is, and also it's very, you know, there's no phase issues with that. It's really easy to hang one set of mics right over the kit and kind of get them low. And I just wanted to keep it a little bit cleaner today and do something different, because all the other videos we've done my, you know, cross the kit kind of stereo miking thing. I figured it's a good opportunity to change it up a little bit.
You know, the toms, I mean, I love the high tuning and the small drums. The toms have great body. The snare is nice and dry and has a nice crack to it. So second question is, tell me about the shield, the plexiglass shield in front of the sax.
Oh, that's just a clear sonic panel. That's just kind of standard. They make all different sizes. We're only using that because we wanted line of sight for everybody, and I wanted to get the saxophone as far away from, you know, the drums and separate it as much as I could from the piano and the bass, just so we can get some, you know, some sort of clear sound with it. And the panels do that. They're not the most fun thing to play behind. You can kind of get a lot of splash coming back in your face from them, but in a pinch for in here, just to kind of mitigate bleed, it actually works. They work pretty well.
Right.
But it's just like thick, what is it? It's a type of plastic. They're expensive. That I know.
Yeah, plexiglass.
Yeah, plexiglass. That's what it is. Thank you. Yep. And
Nice.
it works. I mean, we're just mitigating. We're not. It's not a wall.
No, we could hear that in the room mics. So what's the agenda, Charlie? We're gonna.
I think it's time to get a little concert.
Yeah, we'll play some music for you.
Yeah, you guys ready to do it?
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to tweak my mix a little bit as we're going here because I was turning stuff up and down. But yeah, whenever you guys want to take it away.
All right, let's play good bait.
You want to do 4 bars up front?
Yeah.
Nice. Holy crap, that was good. Man, that was awesome.
Thank you, man. It was really super fun.
So you're gonna play it for another hour, right?
Yep. As soon as the Venmo starts coming in from the audience.
Oh, the Venmo. I've never heard of such a word.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys, that was awesome.
Thank you so much, really. It was a pleasure to be here, really. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, that was something else.
It is so nice to see just a
I'm sort of playing together.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fun to hear, musicians in the same room that can have a conversation with each other as they're going. It's just, that is, to me, is one of the most amazing things about music.
Yeah. It's interesting, like during the pandemic, I mean, we've all been able to continue making music because the technology is so wonderful and you know what I mean, and but you can't make music like this without being in the same room. I can't send that drum part to him and say, okay, great, now you play. It's like, it's got to be at the same time. There's something really special about it, and I've done a few things, but it's good to be with my friends and playing music again. So thanks for that too.
Matt?
My jaw's on the floor. I'm sorry. That was really great. Yeah, that was a real treat. I feel like I had a front row seat at a really nice club, except this sounded better.
Yeah, right. No shit.
So Charles, thank you so much for making this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And Charlie, thanks to you as well. We've glossed over this idea of how difficult it is to get a great sound out of 4 live instruments, acoustic instruments in the same room. We talked about the bleed and so on, but I think that understates the challenge to actually make that sound as good as it did. So kudos to you for doing that, because it really did sound great.
It's no small feat. It really isn't.
The piano was the hardest thing on this one.
Yeah.
And not because of the piano part of the playing, it was because it turns into a rumble machine for the drums.
Right.
And it's not the backside, it's actually what's coming through down by the pedals.
Right.
And going through, and the soundboard just turns into this big rumble thing. So we spent a little time last night playing with that.
Oh, right on.
Which no one can really see in the broadcast because we don't have cameras there, but there are a few baffles between the drums and the piano, somewhat strategically.
Yeah.
Charlie, can you talk at all about how you set those mics on the piano? I don't know if that's appropriate for this, but.
Yeah, that came. You saw that photo, Ernesto?
Oh yeah.
Of that?
Yep.
That was when we got that. This is the second piano we've had here. The first thing we did was we took a single mic, and we literally went in. There's 4. I think there's 4 bays on the back of that one, right? I can't remember. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we divided each of those bays into 4, and we literally took a mic and recorded the same thing up and down in each one. And we made notes of every spot.
Oh, right.
And then we kind of went 2 feet back, a foot in, 6 inches. It took a while. And just made notes of, that in that position, that was great articulation for the high end, or that was great articulation for the lower. It's a little flat there, or a little bit boxy, kind of like that there. Yeah. And then we found our favorite spot that was the best on the low and for the high end, but still was articulate. And we just double mic'd it at that point, and then just blended that together. Mm-hmm. But that took like about 3 hours, just the same 8 or 10 bar phrase. A friend of ours comes over and plays this passage over and over. Okay, move it 6 inches down, move it. Yeah. And then we have this session that's like this long and a bunch of notes. And okay, those 4 spots are the best. They work all the time.
Yeah. Wow. Right.
That's how we found it on those, because the other piano was completely different.
Amazing.
That's kind of how it is with all of this a little bit.
Yeah, it's all a little bit. That's why I found these things so helpful, is because you guys really, when I watched the ones you had done previously, because a consumer is just like, okay, I want to check. I heard about this Mini K87. I want to check that out. And you find a lot of stuff, where people are. People do their best to give some approximation of what it sounds like, but I mean, you're still just talking about that one thing in that one room, and that it's like that's the genius of engineering, is finding the placement and finding all those subtle things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it was great to watch you guys talk through some of that. again, I had already bought the mic. I just was kind of, I was kind of trying to make sure I had bought the right mic, because I put it on my drums and I thought, man, this is really, because on my rock drums I have, I have a Beta 52 in the sound hole, and it sounded good, but for one thing.
Right.
And it didn't, I needed so much more than that. And when I put the 47 on, it sounded great to me, but I'm a drummer before I'm a engineer or a mixing, before I'm an audiophile, I'm a drummer. And so I wanted to make sure that I wanted to make sure I wasn't overlooking something. And when as you guys ran through the stuff, it was very clear that you took all of that into consideration, and that's the gift that you give to the people that are watching, is like this either these other elements that are beyond just like, this is what it sounds like here, and this is what it sounds like here, and this is my guitar cabinet through it, which is great, but it's not. It's just there's a lot more to it than
there is a lot more. I mean, and I think the biggest part of that is anytime, whether you're engineer, musician, recording, whatever, you have to be willing to put in a little time to learn that gear you have, just like you did the instrument.
Absolutely.
And that was a huge thing for me as I kind of transitioned from playing so much to this more, was I started looking at the whole thing quite different. And then I realized, wow, I don't know anything.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know how many nights I'd get Ernesto over here and I'd be like, look, it's like 6 o'clock. We'll be done by midnight. We're just going to try these few mics in a few spots, make some notes, and see what they sound like. Like 4 in the morning, he's stumbling out the door like, oh, again, I let this guy talk me. But all of that was helpful to learn. It's like the piano or like the overheads. Or, I wish I always got to do upright, which is why every time I always ask the player, and I've learned more about how to record an upright from the actual player of where the mic needs to be, and you can kind of get to places quicker and then identify what you like or don't like. In the beginning, I think that it's harder to find what you don't like, really, because you put it up there and you don't, something's wrong, I don't understand.
Right.
Right. So how do you get to that point? But that's where practice, it's just old school practice, man.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. You have to put in the time, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a single stroke roll or your bow, like bowing the bass or whatever it is. You just have to put the man hours in. You know what I mean, to do that. No one can really give that to you. You have to do it. It's
right.
And actually, the thing I've learned as I've gotten older too is if they had given it to you, it would have robbed you of the opportunity of really understanding it on a deeper level anyway.
Yep.
So that's why I look forward to those things now, where I'm like, oh man, this is, I want to pick guys' brains, what I mean? Just call everybody I know, and say, well, what was your experience? And then you kind of get the amalgamation of it all and form your own thing. Your guys have been really helpful.
Oh,
and I
awesome.
I really like too that, and this is just a shout out for anybody who might be happening to watch on an engineering tip, is like, one of the great things I noticed about you, this is our first time working together, is the first thing you did was come into the room and hear how everybody sounded in the room. Like, you were not interested in your opinion of what my drum should sound like. You were like, well, how does it sound actually there in front of it? And then you went back into the control room and tried to recreate it there. And that's just something, that's like, you're a bit of a unicorn in that way. There's not a lot of people that really do that anymore. Like, and all the greats really did. You know what I mean? So kudos to you for that as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
You guys made it easy.
Yeah.
This was fun. So, well, Matt, you have anything that you want to follow up with?
Last thing I'll say, sure, is, again, thank you to Charles and the band. For those people who have just tuned in for this, and this is their first one, we have, as I mentioned at the top, we have 5 other episodes of this featuring other artists and other styles. And that's it. And thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. LA area bands and musicians who want to get involved with this, let me know. And that's it. So Charlie, thank you to you as well. And Charles, are you able to play us out?
Yeah, we'll play you out with a nice blues here.
You say bass solo? What?
Let's do it in that. 1. Thanks, guys. 1.